Hello, everyone. As you've probably picked up, I'm Andrew. I'm also A&M at A&M on GitHub. So you've probably seen me numerous times, both on the forum mailing list and in the commits and the pull requests and such. So I've been with the Blockly team for a little over 3 years now. And before that, I was in a larger kids and family team at Google. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about working, where we're going with the direction in Blockly for mobile devices. And this is going to be a slightly code-heavy talk. I'll give some demonstrations and actually do some live building of a couple of new demos that we have set up. So, okay. About 3 years ago, I was pulled in from another project in the Kids and Families team to join Blockly and take over the Android native implementation. So we had decided that tablets were really important to kids as users, and we wanted to be able to reach out to that audience. And we had heard some concerns from developers saying that the performance of a WebView in a mobile environment was not sufficient, and that they were looking for easier ways to integrate their app around the Blockly environment. And so with all of this, we heard that we took this in as a lot of strong interest that this was something that the world kind of wanted. And so we implemented this for Android and iOS. We have two separate code bases, one in Java, one in Swift. I was mostly responsible for the Java implementation. So that meant that we were maintaining 3 code bases to do Blockly, but this was at the same time that Web was making strong inroads in support for Scratch 3.0. Variables was rewritten. We saw strong performance gains on the web environment. So in addition, Android and iOS were moving in slightly divergent directions just because they were run from 2 separate development teams. And also the underlying platform frameworks led to a few decisions. And so this made the 2 mobile libraries kind of lose traction in the developer community. We had problems on Android trying to mimic the SVG vector performance. Caitlin, as we mentioned earlier, was doing this amazing performance work for drag and drop in the web library for Scratch. And we saw no one pick up any use on Android or iOS developers. So who here has actually looked at the Blockly Android libraries? Blockly iOS libraries? So that's my point. For those not in the room watching the recording, the answer was 0 to both of those. So this is one where we're finally saying today, these are deprecated. We're not doing any feature development any further. We will keep the repositories live. We will take in any pull requests, and if we have the time, pull them in for the other people out there who are using them. But we are not making this a priority to continue moving forward with this work. For where we are now on the web performance, seeing that a number of commercial apps that have targeted phones and tablets have seen success with the current web library, apparently performance wasn't as big a problem as we thought. So we're going to move forward with what we have. So what is that? So first of all, we are refocusing all of our efforts, my effort, I guess, on the web and JavaScript implementation with respect to mobile. I have committed in the developer branch 3 new mobile-focused demos, and I'm going to go through all 3 of those here. One, they break down like mobile HTML, Android, and iOS. These are works in progress, but they are the boilerplate that will allow you to figure out how to set up your own projects so that you can do multi-platform development with Blockly, and how to get the most out of the a touch-oriented interface. And I'm going to go through how to grab these demos, build them, and what direction that we want to go with them. So without further ado, you will find all 3 demos under demos/mobile. And if I pull over the, there we are. Enlarge this a little bit. This is GitHub on the developer branch. And we can probably zoom in a little bit. Maybe not that much. Okay, there we go. Stop. I'm doing mouse from quite a delay. Oh, this may be challenging. Demos. So under demos, we have this new, I'm looking at the wrong screen. There we are, mobile. So come on, Hangouts, there we are. Android, HTML, and iOS. Here is the HTML one, and we have, we'll bring this up. This is index.html. So we have in here the mobile HTML, and the first thing that I want to point out is that in here is a command to link resources. So this command, I'll run unfortunately off screen, is going to be making symbolic links of all the Blockly resources into the local directory, so that this index.html will see references to those files just like as if it was in an Android asset or a iOS resources directory. So that means that the HTML that is used in this copy can be copied verbatim into the local files of each of the native applications. And if I open that directory, let's see here. Okay, that file. It was there. Okay, so this is what this looks like. I've actually opened this up in a Chrome with developer tools open, because down here at the bottom is a little mobile simulator button. So I can go into that, and it'll show me that the full window is taken up by the entire Blockly WebView. And if I do a new window, let's see here. We can see what's going on in here that is somewhat unique to the mobile use case. Forward. Okay, I'll move this out of the way for a moment. So we're doing things such as making sure that the system doesn't zoom by setting the min, max, and initial scale. We have some constraints on margins and padding because we're expecting this to be embedded into a fragment or a view controller with other UI surrounding it. And we're also referencing the toolbox as a separate JS file, which I'll point to in just a moment. But other things should look the same. We have Blockly compressed and blocks compressed, and the language file here, message.js in. If I can pull this up one more time. There we go. And finally, the inject. So if you have your own blocks, you're going to drop these into this index.html file. If you have customizations to the workspace, here's your inject. And so this one file is actually used across all three platforms. I've set up these three projects so that Android Studio and iOS will be copying from this. So this mobile HTML directory is a good template for you to set up a environment where you can iterate very quickly off your local file system, figuring out how to configure out Blockly, and then open up your Android project and your iOS project. So let's try that for a moment. So here we are, my Blockly web under demos, mobile, Android. And so this is the directory that I'm going to open up for this project, or is actually already open. In there is a app directory with standard resources and Java that loads this in. I'm going to pull up the Gradle file in particular here. Oops, wrong Gradle file. Because what we have going on here is two new Gradle tasks. So we have copy Blockly HTML files and copy Blockly more files, for lack of a better name, that will copy. The first one copies the index.html and the toolbox standard.js. So if you have additional files, such as your own block definitions, these will be needed to copy into Android. And the Blockly more files copies the basic compressed files. And so if I'm playing this, any changes that I make to the HTML files, as long as I've updated those Gradle tasks, will be copied directly into the Android resources. And again, I have to get the right. Everything's coming up on the wrong desktop. Whoops. Let's go back here. So here we have Blockly and WebView. Give it a moment. And we have all of our standard blocks. Being able to drag it. Zoom controls. You can even use things such as oops, pinch to zoom. Thank you, Sam, from Microsoft, pulling that in. So now it looks more like a traditional, it interacts like a traditional touch device. And a lot of the techniques that you're already familiar with in using the web version of Blockly carried directly over. And similarly, if we go to the Android stuff, sorry, this is the Android stuff, Xcode. Yeah, let's go ahead and close that for a moment. Okay, this is the open dialogue from the Android system, Xcode, sorry, and Blockly web demos. I need to get that right. There we are. And still open a more window. Here. So this is Xcode. We can open the file. Oops. Select targets, convert, no, cancel. Cancel that. What I'm looking for. This, I'm just going to go ahead and build this because I'm sure you're having as much trouble reading this as I am. I need to figure out my display settings. Let me see if I can quickly change this. Arrangements, side, play. Oh, okay. Continue on. So I can go ahead and play this, and we have this set up for I think it's iPad Air or something. Build succeeded. And in the background here, we have the simulator popping up. And so in this case, the build files are coming from, let's see, where is it? Resources. Oh. So they go to, what happened to my, okay, so here we are in the simulator. Again, very similar look. So the view controller containing the WebView has opened up with all of the HTML and all of the same blocks and configuration. And any changes that I have made to the index.html also get mirrored over here. I haven't done any changes here, so this is the standard toolbox, but all of that comes from the same window. I'm not finding my slides anymore, so I'm just going to reopen this Blockly. So in the iOS directory, so before I showed that the Android code was using the Gradle task to copy the files, both for Blockly compressed, blocks compressed message files. In the Android code base, this particular project, we have added a pre-build task that calls out to this file, copy resources.shell. And this will grab the core files for the media directory, the messages. Media is important for icons, the click sound. All of those get copied in as local resources for both Android and the iOS. And if you are adding files for your own block definitions or string tables, this is exactly where you want to add it so that it gets pulled into the iOS directory. And we have then a standalone version of Blockly that can run off the network in a WebView. And it's synchronized for quick cross-platform development for both Android and iOS. And I think that was the biggest complaint with having the Android and iOS native apps. So where we're going with this, this is a work in progress. I've seen some bugs as I was working on it last night. But now there's some baseline for everyone to continue developing. We will continue to add functions on the fragment and the view controllers to add hooks for input and output, generating code, toolbox configuration. And so I'm really happy that we have the starting point, and hopefully this begins to address the real needs that the developers have in working in mobile environments. So do you have any questions that I can answer at this point?
I actually don't have a question. It's just I've used Blockly in Chrome and it works great. So it's fantastic to see that you're bringing the support now so that people, and doing it on the iPad. So all the touch support and everything, all the work that you've done is really kind of shining through, and thank you.
Thank you. If there's
I just want to also give my thanks on just like the performance improvements that you guys have made on mobile devices. We don't explicitly use the iOS or Android versions just because we are able to wrap everything in Cordova. So yeah, it definitely made our lives easier without having to learn different languages on this.
Yeah, having that like slightly different APIs that occurred in the Swift and the Java implementation was an overhead, not just for us internally in trying to keep things aligned, but also for our external developers. And hopefully now that these two projects are so tightly paired, we're going to do a better job of keeping them in parity with each other.
And by the way, for anyone who's been watching the screens or is watching the video later, the lag that you see is because our video conferencing software on the actual device, it's much faster.
Yes, it's thank you, Eric, for pointing that out, because lag and performance is one of the big issues that we're trying to solve here. So go ahead.
I just wanted to ask whether you could put up a demo as well for, and I've forgotten what it's called, the desktop version, like as in...
Like Electron?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Okay. So we have been working not in Electron, but at one of its close relatives, NWJS. There is a work in progress developer tool that is a major overhaul of the block factory, and that will start using the NPM dependency management, and that works pretty great, actually. Like, and as we eliminate the closure dependencies in the Blockly library, we're actually going to see more improvement there because that's one of the areas where it kind of blows up. Closure, having a history long before NPM, doesn't integrate as smoothly with the NPM release cycle as other systems.
And one more note on that, Blockly by itself can also be used in offline. So you can have a local copy and just open it up in a web browser without being connected to the internet.
And that's really what's going on in these Android and iOS demos.
So we've done that in Electron. If you want an example, we could try to post it as well, but we've actually gone and built that.
Several
'Cause
people
we
have.
needed to,
Kano has done it
Yeah.
for some of their LightPad app. It's very easy. I think that probably the biggest, and it's tiny, but the gotcha that comes to mind is making sure that you set your media directory correctly, so you're not calling out to our servers for the click sound or something like that.
But if you did have a small standalone example that you wanted to contribute,
Yes, and we also did that for the block factory. So that was the whole purpose. We wanted an offline kind of block factory builder for some of the things we're building, so we can help out.
So you would love our new developer tools.
That's awesome. Thank you.
It's coming along where we're trying to make sure that the system has file system access and therefore integrates into the local. It does better read-write integration into your version control system. Everything's in open source. You can find it and send me bug reports, but it hasn't been stable enough for me to like do an official announce yet. So it's on its own repository. I think you like if you're really interested, then Blockly-dev tools.